I didn't come to fight. I didn't come to cry. I only came to say hello. It had been years. And still, my heart beat like it was our first day back together. There I was, standing outside the big iron gate, holding a little bag of muffins I baked that morning. My hands were shaking. My knees, too. His mansion was huge. White pillars, clean windows, tall palm trees lining the driveway like soldiers. My son really did make it big, bigger than I ever imagined. But why did it feel like I didn't belong here? I pressed the button by the gate. Nothing. Pressed it again. Still nothing. So I waited. Maybe someone would notice me. Maybe the cameras were watching. I looked down at my shoes, worn-out flats I've had for years, then up at the shiny car parked inside. That wasn't the boy I raised. That was someone else's world now. And me, I was just the woman who made his lunchboxes once. Still, I smiled. I always smiled when it came to Daniel. He was my only child, my pride, my heart. I started walking up the long driveway, slow steps, careful ones. And as I walked, memories came rushing back, like wind brushing past my face. I remembered little Daniel running around in the backyard with chocolate on his cheeks. I remembered his first science fair, how he stayed up all night building that volcano. I remembered standing at his college graduation, clapping so hard my hands hurt. He was always smart, always hungry for more, and I gave him everything I could, even when it meant going without. I walked a little farther and past a big glass window. I could almost see my reflection, but more than that, I saw the difference. Back then, I was the center of his world. Now, I was just a stranger walking up to a house that felt colder than it looked. But I kept going, because today, I told myself, maybe things would be different. Maybe he'd hug me. Maybe he'd say, "Mom, what a surprise." Maybe he'd tell me about his life, his family, his dreams. I imagined he'd offer me tea, show me around, let me meet his little girl. Yes, I knew he had a daughter now. I saw it once, on a magazine cover in the store. That tiny picture was the only peek I ever got. I reached the steps. My hand hovered over the doorbell. I took a deep breath. And just then, I heard footsteps. Someone was coming. The door clicked, slowly opened, and what I saw made my heart stop. Have you ever walked into a moment so painful you couldn't even speak? If you've ever felt forgotten by someone you love, you're not alone. I'd love to hear your story in the comments, and if you want to follow this journey with me, go ahead and subscribe. It means more than you know. Before that door opened, before the silence between us grew so heavy, there was a time when my whole world began and ended with my son, Daniel. He wasn't just my child. He was my reason for waking up every morning. When his father passed away, Daniel was only 10. I still remember the day of the funeral, how he held my hand and whispered, "Don't cry, Mom. I'll take care of you." And you know what? I believed him. Back then, we lived in a small rented house near Fresno. 2 bedrooms, leaky roof, and a front porch that creaked every time you stepped on it. But to me, it was heaven, because it was ours. Daniel used to sit at the kitchen table doing his homework while I packed lunches for the next day. Peanut butter sandwiches, apple slices. Sometimes when I had a little extra, I'd slip in a small chocolate bar. He'd grin like it was Christmas morning. He was bright, always curious, always dreaming big. He once said, "Mom, I'll buy you a big house one day, with a yard and a fountain." And I laughed. "Just don't forget the little porch, okay?" That was Daniel. Kind, gentle, ambitious. I worked 2 jobs, cleaning houses during the day, waitin' G tables at night just to keep him in good schools. There were nights I came home too tired to stand, But when I'd peek into his room and see him sleeping with his textbooks open and the lamp still on, it was worth every ache in my bones. When he got into Stanford, I thought my heart would burst. I remember holding that acceptance letter in my trembling hands, whispering, "We did it, baby. We really did it." But then came the bills, the endless tuition forms. So I sold my car, took out a loan, even mortgaged the little house. Everyone told me I was crazy, but I said, "He's my son. He deserves every chance I never had." And for a while, it felt like the universe agreed with me. Daniel called every Sunday, told me about his classes, his professors, his dreams. He said he wanted to start a business, something to make people's lives easier. I was so proud. I told everyone at the diner about him. "My boy's at Stanford," I'd say with a smile. Then slowly, the calls got shorter, then less often. Then they stopped. At first, I blamed his busy schedule. I told myself, he's just focused. He's working hard. When he finally called again, it was to say he couldn't come home for Thanksgiving, then Christmas, then years slipped by. But I didn't get angry. No, not me. I just kept sending him letters, little notes with love, prayers, and a few $20 bills tucked inside, just in case. I still remember his first company launch. I saw the photos online. He was smiling, shaking hands with men in suits. My boy, my golden son. I clipped the article and put it on my fridge, like a proud mama always does. When people asked if he ever visited, I lied. I said, "Oh yes, he's just so busy, but he calls all the time." The truth? He hadn't called in over a year. But even then, I never stopped hoping. Because no matter how far he went, no matter how rich he got, he was still that little boy who promised to take care of me. That's why, that morning, when I decided to visit, I told myself it would be okay. That maybe he'd just been too caught up in life to remember how much I missed him. I baked his favorite muffins, blueberry, the same ones I made when he was a boy. All the way on the bus ride, I kept smiling. The woman sitting next to me even said, "You must be visiting someone special." I said, "Yes, my son." She smiled. "You must be so proud." And I was, even then. But standing at that fancy door, clutching that little bag of muffins, I started to feel something else too. Fear. Fear that maybe the boy I raised had changed. That the little promise he made at 10 years old was long forgotten behind those tall white walls. I told myself, no, he's still my Daniel. He just needs to see me to remember. But deep down, a quiet voice whispered, "What if he doesn't want to remember?" And then, before I could think another thought, the door opened. And I saw him, my son, and he didn't look happy to see me. He didn't hug me. He didn't even smile. What he said next cut deeper than anything I'd ever heard from my own child. The door swung open, and there he was, Daniel, older, taller, dressed in a fancy shirt and watch that probably cost more than my rent. But his eyes, they weren't the same. He looked at me like I was some stranger selling cookies. Not his mother, not the woman who gave up everything for him. His eyebrows lifted, confused. "Mom?" I smiled, held up the bag in my hand like a peace offering. "Hi, sweetheart. I was just in the area. Thought I'd stop by and say hello." His face didn't move. No smile, no hug, just silence. Behind him, I saw a woman appear. Tall, pretty, dressed in designer clothes. She had her arms crossed and eyes locked on me like I was a problem. I could tell right away. This was his wife. She didn't smile either. Daniel stepped out and pulled the door halfway closed behind him. "Why didn't you call first?" he asked. His voice, it wasn't angry, just cold, flat, like I was a meeting he forgot to schedule. I blinked. I didn't want to bother you. Just thought I'd surprise you. I made muffins." He looked down at the bag like it was dirty laundry, then back up at me. Now's not really a good time. I laughed a little, trying to lighten the mood. Well, I just wanted to see you, even for a minute. The woman inside whispered something. Daniel turned his head to listen. He nodded, then looked back at me. We're actually having people over. A private thing. Private? Like I wasn't part of his life anymore. Like I didn't carry him for 9 months. Like I hadn't worked double shifts so he could wear clean shoes to school. My hands started to tremble. I tried to hide it by gripping the muffin bag tighter. Oh, I said. I didn't mean to interrupt anything. I saw the house, and I wanted to see how you were doing. Maybe meet my granddaughter, if that's okay? That's when I saw it. His jaw tightened. He glanced back toward the doorway. I don't think now's the right moment for that, he said, barely above a whisper. I looked past him, trying to catch a glimpse inside. And then I saw her. A little girl, curly brown hair, pink dress. She looked about 4, maybe 5. She peeked out from behind a chair, then quickly ducked back out of sight. My breath caught in my throat. She looked just like him when he was little, just like me. Is that her? I asked softly. Lily? Daniel didn't answer. He just looked down at the floor. I took a step forward, hoping for something, anything. Maybe he'd stop me, invite me in, let me hold her for just a second. But instead, he stepped in front of me. His hand gripped the edge of the door. Mom, I really don't want to make this harder than it needs to be, he said. It's just not a good time. I stared at him. My own son, my little boy who once cried when I scraped my knee. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. What could I say? That I missed him? That I thought about him every night? That I remembered his birthday every single year, even if he forgot mine? That I'd prayed for this moment, for this one little hello, only to feel like I was standing in front of a stranger? Instead, I nodded. Okay. He hesitated. I'll call you next week. We'll set something up. But we both knew that call wouldn't come. Not next week. Not next month. He reached out and gently took the bag of muffins. Thanks for these. Then, he shut the door. Didn't even wait for me to turn around. I stood there, staring at that big white door like it had just slammed shut on my entire life. And it had. My legs felt heavy, my heart even heavier. I turned and walked back down the steps. Slow, silent, like a ghost. And then, just as I reached the bottom of the driveway, I turned back for one last look, and through the glass side panel, I saw something that broke me in half. There was a party happening inside, and I saw something through that window that made me realize my son didn't just forget me. He erased me. I didn't plan to look, but my feet wouldn't move. My heart? It was still stuck on that doorstep. So I stood by the side of the house, half hidden behind a tree. I know I shouldn't have, but something in me needed to understand. Why had he shut me out like that? Why did it feel like he wanted to pretend I didn't exist? Then I saw the window. Big, wide, clean glass, like a movie screen. And through it, I saw a life that didn't include me. The house was full of people. Women in shiny dresses, men in nice suits. Laughter, glasses clinking, soft music playing. I thought maybe it was just a small gathering. But then I saw it. The banner, strung across the living room wall, in big pink letters. Happy 5th birthday, Lily, I gasped. My hand flew to my chest. 5. She was 5 years old. That meant she'd been born the year I sent Daniel his last letter, the one with the name, a baby blanket, and a note that said, "Congratulations. I hope one day I can hold her." He never replied. And now, here they were, celebrating. Without me, I watched as Lily ran across the room, giggling, holding a little stuffed bear. She jumped into Daniel's arms, and he spun her around like I used to do with him. I should have been there. I should have helped blow up balloons. I should have been clapping when she made a wish. But I wasn't even invited. I was erased. I backed up a little, heart pounding. I could have turned away right then, walked back to the bus stop, pretended I saw nothing. But something told me to look one more time, and that's when I saw Veronica lean into Lily and kiss her cheek. Then she turned to one of the guests and said something. I couldn't hear every word, but I did hear this. Her grandma? Oh, she passed years ago. The air left my body. I almost stumbled. Passed? She told them I was dead? No, that couldn't be right. Maybe I heard wrong. Maybe. But then Daniel nodded. Just once. Quiet. Like he agreed. Like it was true. I stood there frozen, watching them all smile, toast, laugh. While I stood outside in yesterday's sweater, holding my breath and swallowing pain, I wasn't just left out. I was written out. That hurt worse than any door slammed in my face, because this wasn't about time or distance or forgetting to call. This was a choice. He chose to erase me, to pretend I never existed, to raise my granddaughter without ever saying my name. I turned from the window and started walking fast, faster than my legs wanted to go. The sun was still out, but everything around me felt dark. How do you come back from something like that? How do you walk away from a moment that feels like your heart just cracked wide open? I don't remember how I got to the bus stop. I just remember sitting there, staring at the ground thinking, what did I do to deserve this? All I ever gave him was love. All I ever wanted was to be part of his life. But somehow, that wasn't enough. And now I wasn't even real to him anymore. I reached into my purse and pulled out the small photo I kept in my wallet. Daniel, at age 10, missing front teeth, holding up a crayon drawing that said, "I love you, Mom." I held it close to my chest and closed my eyes. "I love you too," I whispered. Even now, even after everything. The bus pulled up. I got on without a word. I didn't cry. Not yet. But inside, something had shifted. Something quiet. Something deep. Something that had lived in me all these years. Finally broke. I thought I could forget this day. But once I got home, I opened the drawer I hadn't touched in years. And inside it, I found the one thing Daniel forgot I still had. I didn't cry on the bus. Not even when I saw families sitting together. A little boy leaned against his mom's shoulder, and it reminded me of Daniel. How he used to rest his head on me after school. How he'd say, "Don't fall asleep without me, Mom." But now he didn't even want me near his child. Didn't want the world to know I existed. I sat quietly, hands in my lap, my reflection staring back at me in the dark window. And for the first time in my life, I felt small, like a piece of the world had vanished and taken me with it. When I got home, I didn't turn on the lights, just walked to the kitchen, placed the muffin bag on the counter, and sat down. I didn't even take off my shoes. It was silent. Too silent. I could hear the old clock ticking in the hallway. Tick, tick, tick. Like it was reminding me that time doesn't care. It moves on, whether your heart's breaking or not. I finally stood up and went to the living room. There was a picture frame on the wall. Daniel's high school graduation. He was smiling so wide. I was hugging him so tight. I reached up and took it down. I didn't break it. I didn't throw it. I just turned it around so the picture faced the wall. I couldn't look at it anymore. I walked over to the sign, drawer by the couch, the one I hadn't opened in a long time. It was filled with letters I never sent, birthday cards, holiday notes, even a little pink sweater I'd knitted for Lily when I first heard Daniel had a daughter. I never knew her size. I just guessed. I held the tiny sweater in my hands. It still smelled like the lavender soap I used to wash it. Still soft, but it had never been worn, never even opened. I placed it gently back inside the drawer. Then I sat down and whispered, I guess this was our goodbye. No words, no hug, no I love you, just a closed door and a birthday party I watched from the outside. But as I sat there, surrounded by memories I couldn't hold anymore, something inside me began to stir. Not anger, not bitterness, something else. Clarity. For so long I thought love was enough, that if I just gave and gave, he'd always know I was there. But maybe I was wrong. Maybe loving someone isn't always enough to keep them close. And maybe letting go, really letting go, doesn't mean you failed. It means you finally chose yourself. I stood up, walked to the kitchen, poured myself a cup of tea, even though my hands were still shaking, and as I sat back down at the table, I said it out loud. Not for him, for me. I'm done begging to be remembered. And just as I said it, something caught my eye. A corner of an old envelope sticking out beneath a stack of papers in the drawer. It looked familiar. I pulled it out slowly. My breath caught. It wasn't just an envelope. It was the envelope. The one my late husband gave me years ago, sealed tight, with my name on it. He'd said, if anything ever happens to me, and things go wrong with Daniel, open this. I never thought I'd need it, never thought I'd reach that point. But here I was, holding it in my hands, and I hadn't seen it in over 20 years. I stared at it, heart pounding, because suddenly I remembered what else was inside. Something Daniel never knew I had. Inside that envelope was a secret, one that could change everything Daniel thought he owned, and I was done staying silent. The envelope felt heavy in my hands, not because of its weight, but because of what it meant. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at it. My fingers traced the edges. The paper was yellowed, the seal still untouched. It had my name in my husband's handwriting. Margaret, only if he forgets. I whispered the words, only if he forgets. I guess today was that day. I opened it slowly, careful not to tear it. Inside were two things, a letter and a folded legal document. I opened the letter first. My husband had written it not long before he passed. I remembered the day he gave it to me. He was already sick, but still thinking of our future. His words were simple, kind. He wrote, if you're reading this, it means Daniel has changed more than we hoped. And if that happens, I want you to know you're not alone. I left something for you, something he may try to forget. But it belongs to you, Margaret. You earned it. You protected this family when I couldn't. Tears filled my eyes. I unfolded the legal paper. It was a copy of the deed to Daniel's property. Except, it wasn't just his. My name was on it. 25% ownership. I gasped. I had no idea. Turns out, when Daniel bought the house with part of his inheritance, my husband added a clause to the trust. Daniel could live there, grow his family, do whatever he wanted. But part of that home, a real part, would always belong to me, as long as I was alive. I sat there frozen, reading every line again and again. It was real. It was mine. He didn't just forget me. He built his life on something that still had my name carved into it. I let out a shaky laugh. All these years, I thought I had nothing. Thought I was just the poor old woman on the outside of a mansion, but I was part of that foundation, literally. I wiped my eyes and stood up, walked over to the caboan. Bard pulled out a fresh sheet of paper and started writing. Not another birthday letter, not another apology, not another hope that he'd come around. This time, I wrote to someone else. My old friend Linda. She used to be a lawyer, retired now, but sharp as ever. We hadn't spoken in years, but she was always kind to me. I wrote, "Dear Linda, I know this is sudden, but I need your help with something important. It's about my son, and a piece of paper I never knew would mean so much." I sealed the letter and placed it by the door. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I didn't sit by the phone hoping it would ring. Instead, I made a cup of tea and opened the drawer with all my old letters. Each one had a story, a feeling, a piece of my heart. I started reading them, one by one. The birthday card I wrote when Daniel turned 30. The Christmas note I sent but never mailed. The one that said, "I'm proud of you, even if you never say my name again." And I smiled. Because I realized something. I had loved him deeply. Fully. But now, it was time to love myself just as much. I took the stack of letters and tied them with a ribbon. Not to burn them, not to throw them away, but to keep them as proof of the mother I had been, the mother he had forgotten, but I hadn't. And now, I was going to protect what was mine, not out of revenge, not out of hate, but because silence no longer served me. He shut that door. But he forgot one thing. He built his life on something I still had power over, and I was ready to remember who I was. I made one quiet phone call, and just like that, the paper he thought was long gone started making its way back into the light. And soon, so did I. I mailed the letter to Linda the next morning. Didn't rush, didn't panic, just walked to the corner mailbox like it was any other day. But inside, I felt different. Lighter, stronger, quieter, but not weak. A few days later, she called. "Margaret," she said, "I read everything, and I have one word for you. Leverage." I let out a soft laugh. Leverage? That house. Daniel's house. He might now, it's all his, but your name is still on it. That gives you rights, real ones. We talked for over an hour. She told me what steps to take, where to file, what to protect, and I followed every word, not for revenge, not to hurt him, but to reclaim what I gave and what he took for granted. I didn't call Daniel, didn't tell him a thing. Let the papers do the talking. A few weeks later, I signed the documents that confirmed my ownership. 25%. No one could erase me now. It wasn't about money. It was about being seen, being real again. Then something happened. Linda called with a smile in her voice. "Margaret, I know it sounds bold, but what if you lived near him again? Quietly, legally. Let him see you bloom without a single word." At first, I laughed it off. Move near him? Why? But then, it hit me. I didn't need to be near him. I needed to be near me, and the me I used to be. She didn't hide. She didn't shrink. She planted flowers. She baked muffins. She stood tall. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I looked at the listings in his neighborhood, and right there, 3 houses down from Daniel's mansion, was a small cottage for sale. 1 bedroom, sunroom in the back, tiny front porch, just like the one Daniel used to sit on when he was little. It was expensive, but with Linda's help, I used my share of the property to cover it. Everything was quiet, all done by the book. No yelling, no courtroom, just quiet power. When I moved in, I didn't wave, didn't knock, didn't ask for anything. I just started living. Watered my plants, baked my muffins, sat on my porch with my tea. At first, I didn't see them. Daniel and Veronica stayed out of sight. But one day, I saw her. Lily. She was walking with a nanny, holding a little doll, skipping past my house. She looked up at me, tilted her head, then smiled, just like Daniel used to when he was 5. I smiled betrayal. Didn't say a word. A few days later, it happened again. This time she waved, and I waved back. No one told her who I was, not yet, but something in her heart already knew. After that, I saw Daniel. He was getting into his car. He looked over and froze. Our eyes met, and in that one look, I saw it all. Shock, guilt, fear. He knew. He knew the papers had been filed. He knew the silence was no longer his to control. But I didn't flinch, didn't smile, didn't nod. Just looked at him, calm, steady, unbothered. I wasn't asking to be let in anymore. I wasn't standing outside the gate. I was home. And this time, he was the one watching from the other side. Then came the letter, a party invitation. But it wasn't about forgiveness. It was about control. And he had no idea what I brought with me. The envelope came on a Thursday, cream-colored, thick paper, my name written in neat cursive. At first, I thought it was a mistake. But when I opened it, my heart skipped. It was from Daniel, an invitation to Lily's 6th birthday party. It was being held at a fancy country club just down the road. Dress code, semi-formal, RSVP by Friday. There was no message, no hi mom, no hope you're well. Just a name, a date, and a time. It didn't feel like love. It felt like control. Like he was trying to smooth things over now that he realized I had rights. That I wasn't gone. I held the invite for a long time, unsure what to do. Then I called Linda. She chuckled softly. Ah, the let's pretend nothing happened trick. I stayed quiet. You don't have to go, she said. You've made your point. I nodded. I know. Then paused. But I want to go. Why? She asked gently. Because it's her birthday, I whispered, and I have something to give him. I spent all Friday afternoon preparing. Not my hair, not my outfit, my power. I went into the back room where I kept my husband's old lockbox. Inside was a second envelope, one I hadn't opened in years. It was labeled, Family Trust Addendum, Final Version. I remembered the day my husband signed it. He was pale, tight, red but clear-minded. He said, "This makes it fair. If he ever forgets you, this will remind him." I never thought we'd need it. But here we were. I tucked it into my purse. The party was big, loud, balloons shaped like unicorns, pink tablecloths, a hired magician. Everyone was smiling, laughing, toasting. But when I walked in, it got quiet. Daniel's eyes locked on mine. His smile dropped, just for a second. Then came the show. "Mom," he said way too loud. He rushed over, arms open. I let him hug me, but I didn't hug back. "You came," he said, like it was all normal. I smiled politely. "You invited me." He glanced around. "Let's catch up later, okay?" I nodded, but I wasn't here for small talk. I was here for truth. The party went on. Kids ran around. Grown-ups drank wine. And then, cake time. Lily stood at the front, eyes wide, surrounded by candles. I stayed in the back, quiet, watching, absorbing. When the candles were blown, Daniel turned toward me. "Mom, come meet some people," he said. "Let's get a picture with Lily." But I shook my head. Instead, I reached into my purse and pulled out the envelope. I handed it to him, calm, like passing a napkin. He frowned, confused. "What's this?" "Something your father wanted you to remember," I said. He opened it slowly, right there, in front of everyone. As he read, I saw the color drain from his face. His hands trembled. His mouth opened, but no words came out. The room kept buzzing around us. But for Daniel, time had stopped. Inside that envelope was the legal truth. If Daniel failed to maintain reasonable relationship and care with his living parent, then any future business built using family trust funds could be challenged and frozen. The language was old school, but strong. And it gave me, his mother, the right to step in, if I chose to. Daniel looked at me like a boy who just realized he'd touched fire. "You're no serious," he whispered. I looked him in the eye. "I was never gone, Daniel. You just stopped looking." He swallowed hard. "Why now? Why bring this up today?" I leaned in closer. "Because this isn't revenge," I said. "It's clarity. You erased me from your life. But this paper proves I was always here, whether you liked it or not." He was quiet. And in that silence, I saw something shift in him. Panic, fear, and maybe, just maybe, a flicker of shame. I didn't raise my voice, didn't throw a scene. I simply said, "Enjoy the party." Then I turned and walked out. But I didn't walk far. Just around the corner, where a soft little voice called out behind me, "Grandma?" And in that moment, everything changed. I didn't look back. Not at Daniel. Not at the guests. Not at the cake or the candles. I had said what I came to say. Without yelling. Without drama. Just truth. And sometimes, that's louder than anything else. I stepped outside the country club and felt the cool air hit my face. It was quiet out here. I let out a long breath. I thought that would be it. I thought I'd go home, make some tea, and sit on my porch. But then, I heard it. Little footsteps. Fast, light, full of wonder, and a small voice. "Grandma?" I froze. That word. I hadn't heard it in so long. I didn't think I ever would again. I turned slowly, and there she was. Lily. Pink dress, party shoes, eyes wide and bright like Daniel's when he was small. She clutched a balloon string in one hand. She smiled at me. "Are you really my grandma?" My throat tightened. I knelt down, heart pounding. "Yes," I whispered. "Yes, I am." She stepped closer. "Why weren't you at my other birthdays?" I blinked back tears. Because sometimes grown-ups make mistakes. But I'm here now. She looked down, then back up at me. "I liked the muffins." My heart nearly gave out. Daniel must have given them to her. That tiny bag I left on his porch months ago. She remembered. "You did?" I asked. She nodded. They were warm and soft, like hugs. I smiled through wet eyes. That's what I hoped they'd feel like. She held out her hand. "Want to come back inside?" I looked toward the building, then back at her, and I made a choice. "I think I'll stay out here for now," I said. "But maybe, next time you can visit me?" She nodded like it was the best idea in the world. "I like flowers. Do you have flowers?" "Oh, sweetheart," I smiled. "I have a whole garden." Just then the door opened again. Daniel stepped out. He stopped when he saw us, Lily standing close to me, her hand still in mine. His face softened. Maybe for the first time in a long time. He walked slowly toward us. "Lily," he said gently, "why don't you go see if they brought out the cupcakes?" She lit up. "With sprinkles?" He smiled. "With extra sprinkles." She turned to me and waved. "Bye, Grandma," then ran off, leaving us alone. Daniel stood there, hands in his pockets. "Did you plan all this?" he asked quietly. "The papers, the move, the house next door?" I looked at him. I didn't plan to be forgotten, but once I was, I made a choice not to stay invisible. He looked down, shame written all over his face. "I didn't think you'd ever..." He trailed off. I finished for him. "Fight back?" He nodded slowly. "You were always gentle." "I still am," I said. "But don't confuse gentle with weak." Silence. Then he said something I never expected. "I told people you passed because it was easier. Veronica said it made things cleaner. No confusion. No questions." I felt the words like glass. "Easier for who, Daniel?" I asked. "For you? Or for the part of you that couldn't face me anymore?" He didn't answer, just stared at the ground. Then he pulled something from his jacket. It was the photo, the one I gave him years ago, of me holding him at his kindergarten graduation. He looked at it, then held it out to me. "I kept it," he said, "even when I said you were gone." I didn't take it. I just looked at him. "I don't need proof that you loved me once," I said. "I need to know if you remember how to love me now." He blinked, looked away. "I don't know how to fix this," he whispered. I stepped back. "I'm not asking you to fix it," I said. "I'm asking you to feel it." He nodded slowly. "I'll talk to Lily," he said. "She deserves to know you." That's when I finally took the photo from his hand. "Start there," I said. "And maybe one day you'll remember the boy who promised to take care of me." He looked up, eyes full of something I hadn't seen in years. Not pride, not guilt, but humility. Real, quiet humility. I turned and walked away, this time with peace in my steps. Because even if he never said sorry, I had already reclaimed the part of me that no one could take. I thought that would be the end, until I heard a soft knock at my door a week later. And what I found on my porch made me cry for the first time in years. But not out of pain. It had been a week since the party, a quiet, gentle week. I spent it in my little cottage, watering the garden, baking in the mornings, sitting on my porch with my tea in the afternoons. The sun felt different now. Not warmer, not brighter. Just more mine. No calls, no surprises, no drama. And I was okay with that. I had said what needed to be said. I had shown what needed to be shown. But on Friday morning, just after breakfast, I heard a knock at the door. Soft, small, like someone unsure if they should be there. I opened it slowly, and there she was, Lily, standing on my porch, holding a flower, a purple daisy, a little bent at the stem. Her eyes were shining, her shoes untied, hair a little messy. Perfect. She smiled. "Hi, Grandma." I smiled back, heart aching in the best way. "Hi, sweetheart." She held out the flower. "It's for your garden. I picked it myself." I took it gently, like it was made of gold. "It's beautiful, just like you." She looked down, then up. "Daddy said I can come sometimes, to visit." My throat tightened. I swallowed the lump. I would love that, I said. Anytime you want. She stepped past me, her little eyes exploring every corner of my small home. This is cozy, she said, spinning once in the kitchen. I laughed. That's what I always wanted it to be. She sat on the couch and pulled a book from her backpack. Can you read to me? Of course, I whispered. We sat there for a long time, just the two of us, reading, laughing, sharing cookies. And when she left later that afternoon, I stood at the door and watched her walk back home, holding her daddy's hand. Daniel didn't look up right away, but just before they turned the corner, he did. He nodded. Not a full apology, not a grand gesture, but something real. And I nodded back. The days passed slowly after that. Lily visited more often. She helped me plant tomatoes. She painted a little rock with our initials, ML. She asked questions. Why did Daddy say you were gone? I didn't answer that one fully. I just said, sometimes people forget how to hold on to love. But love waits, and when they're ready, it's still there. She nodded like she understood. Maybe kids don't need full explanations, just honesty. One evening, I sat on my porch as the sun went down, tea in my hand, a soft breeze in the air, and I looked at the house down the street, Daniel's house, the one that once felt like a castle with locked gates. Now it was just a house. But this, my home, my porch, my life, was filled with peace. No more begging, no more waiting by the phone, just me, whole, present, and proud of the woman I still was. I thought about all the years I gave, all the love, and I didn't regret it, because even when others forget who you are, you must never forget yourself. I looked at the flower Lily had given me, now standing tall in a little glass jar by the window, and I smiled. Because healing doesn't always come in big moments. Sometimes it comes in tiny footsteps, soft knocks, and crooked daisies. So if you're listening to this, and someone's made you feel invisible, I hope you remember this. You don't need to fight to be loved. You just need to remember your worth. And sometimes the sweetest revenge is simply living well. What would you have done if you were me? Have you ever been left behind by someone you raised or loved? I'd love to hear your story in the comments. And if you're still here, thank you for walking this road with me. You're not alone. Not ever. The end.